Easter was always one of those times of year that everyone associates with family, pastel colors, and egg hunts, right? But for me and my friends, it had become something a bit different. We'd grown out of the whole hunt for chocolate eggs thing years ago. Instead, we turned it into something way more intense. We didn't follow the rules, we made our own, a combination of manhunt and an Easter egg hunt. It sounded ridiculous at first, but trust me, it worked. We'd split into teams, and instead of just hiding eggs, we'd hide ourselves too, sometimes with eggs hidden nearby, sometimes not. The seekers had to find and tag everyone, but the hiders weren't just running to dodge capture, we were protecting the eggs too. It became a tradition. Every year we'd meet up, make teams, and throw ourselves into the game. We knew the woods behind Kyle's house like the back of our hands, and the game was always just an excuse to test how far we could push ourselves. But that night, something was different. I don't know how to describe it. Usually there's this rush, this kind of anticipation that builds up, and I can't wait for the game to start. But this time I felt like something wasn't right. Maybe it was just me being paranoid, but it was the kind of feeling that clung to you, even when you tried to push it away. I tried to shake it off. We were all just messing around like we always did, right? Same game, same night, same laughs. But that feeling, it didn't go away. Something was off, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. We gathered at Kyle's place like we always did. It wasn't just tradition. It was where we could let loose without anyone telling us to calm down. His backyard was massive, bordered by thick woods that seemed to stretch on forever. It was perfect for our game, a place to run, hide, and get lost in. His parents were out of town, so it was just us. No one to tell us to keep it down or to stop running around at midnight. The game started the same way it always did. We split into teams, fired up the random number generator, and set the timer. The rules were simple. Nothing had changed in years. The only difference tonight was the air. It was chilly, but not the kind of chill that makes you second-guess yourself. No, it was that kind of crispness that made everything feel a little sharper, like you could feel every snap of a twig underfoot a little more than usual. I tried to shake it off. It was just cold, right? Nothing to worry about. I stuck to my usual route. The trees to the left of the backyard where I felt safest. There were fewer bushes there, and it was easier to see if anyone was coming. The moon was bright enough to cast shadows through the leaves, giving everything this eerie glow. It wasn't pitch dark, but it felt darker than it should have, like you could almost reach out and touch the night itself. I remember feeling this tension in the air, this sense of anticipation, but not the good kind. It was almost like the woods themselves were holding their breath, waiting for something. But we'd been playing in these woods for years, so I pushed the thought aside. We were just kids, right? What could possibly go wrong? I don't know what made me look, but I caught something in the corner of my eye, just a flicker of movement. At first, I thought it was just the wind, the shadows playing tricks on me. But then I saw it again, something crouched low behind a tree. I paused, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It didn't feel right. It didn't look like any of my friends. I wasn't sure what to think. My first instinct was to get closer, maybe catch whoever it was off guard. I figured it might be Chuck or Kyle, hiding in a new spot, trying to get an advantage. I moved slowly, quietly, trying to make my way around the tree without making a sound. But when I got closer, when I finally saw the face of whoever was crouched there, my heart dropped. This wasn't one of us. It was a man, a grown man. His clothes were torn up, his hair was matted and wild, and his eyes were wide, too wide, like he hadn't slept in days. They seemed to lock onto mine for just a moment, and everything inside me went still. I froze, not knowing what to do. I didn't even scream. I didn't even think to run. It was like my body was just trying to process what the hell was happening. And then, like something out of a nightmare, he lunged at me. My breath caught in my chest as he slammed me to the ground. His hands were around my throat before I could even react, and for a second I swear I thought I was going to suffocate right there. The air was gone. My mind was racing, but my body wouldn't cooperate. I couldn't fight back. And then, just like that, it was over. He was off me, up and running into the woods without a single word. No explanation, no threat, just the sound of his footsteps disappearing into the trees. I lay there, gasping for air, trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. My chest burned, but the panic wasn't over. What the hell was that guy doing here? Why didn't anyone hear me scream? I lay there on the ground, still struggling to breathe. My chest felt tight, like the weight of what had just happened was pressing down on me. I was too stunned to move, too rattled by the sheer randomness of it all. My brain wasn't catching up with my body. I kept thinking that maybe, just maybe, I had imagined the whole thing. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. A flash, a quick burst of light, deep in the trees. It wasn't like the beam of a flashlight. It wasn't moving in sweeping arcs like we always did when we played. No, this was something different. It was just a brief, sudden flash, like the kind you see when someone takes a picture on their phone. My heart skipped a beat. I froze. Was I imagining it? My mind raced. Could it have been another one of us, messing around, trying to freak me out? But no, the light hadn't been aimed at me directly. Not like any of the flashlights we'd been using. It was too deliberate, too calculated. Someone had snapped a picture. But who? Why? The thought sent a chill down my spine. I felt it in my gut, this nagging sense that I wasn't alone. Someone had been watching me. I couldn't shake the feeling, no matter how hard I tried. I thought about getting up, calling out to my friends, but I couldn't. I was still on the ground, my body too stiff, too overwhelmed by the moment. The idea that someone had been silently observing me, waiting, made my skin crawl. Was it the man who attacked me, or someone else? I had no idea, but I could feel it. I was being watched, and I was no longer sure that it was just a game. We made it back to Kyle's house, but the usual chaos that came with regrouping after a game was gone. There was no excitement, no laughter, just a buzz of anxious voices all talking over each other. Everyone was trying to process what had just happened, but no one really knew where to start. I could barely catch my breath, still shaken by what I'd just gone through. That's when Liam spoke up, his voice cutting through the noise. He looked just as freaked out as the rest of us, but there was something in his words that made everything click. He said that before the game had even started, when we were all still in the backyard setting up, he saw two figures moving through the trees. At first he thought they were just part of the game, maybe Kyle and Jake or someone else sneaking around trying to get an edge. But then he paused, thinking about it again, and said it couldn't have been them. None of us had been together before the game started. That's when it hit us all at once. There were at least 3 other people in those woods that night. The man who attacked me, the one who was probably still out there somewhere, and 2 more who had been watching us long before the game even began. They had been lurking in the trees, waiting. No one had seen them. No one had heard them. I can't explain the feeling that hit me then. I thought I knew those woods. I thought I knew what to expect, where to hide, where to run. But now, with that realization settling in, everything felt wrong. The woods felt different. They weren't this safe, innocent place where we could just let loose and have fun. They'd never been safe. Not really. The idea that there were strangers moving around out there watching us changed everything. I don't know what I expected from that moment, but I definitely didn't expect the realization to hit so hard, so fast. It was like the ground had shifted beneath me, and I couldn't find my footing anymore. I knew what I had to do. Calling the cops was the only thing that made sense. I had been attacked, we had strangers lurking in the woods, and this wasn't just some game anymore. It wasn't some bad prank gone wrong. It was real. It was dangerous. But as soon as I suggested it, Kyle shut me down. He went quiet. Too quiet, in fact. His usual laid-back attitude was gone, replaced by a tense, nervous energy. I can still remember the way he hesitated before saying it, like he was weighing his words carefully. He told us he couldn't get the cops involved. His parents would find out that he'd had people over when they weren't supposed to be there. I remember thinking how ridiculous that sounded. He was seriously going to let his parents' rules stop us from doing what was right. This wasn't a joke anymore. It was serious, but he was insistent, his face tight with anxiety. The room got quiet as we all processed what he was saying. The group was torn. Part of me wanted to scream that this wasn't just about Kyle's parents or his punishment. It was about our safety, about what had actually happened. But the others wavered, looking at each other, unsure of what to do. Nobody wanted to be the one to ruin the night. Nobody wanted to escalate it, but no one seemed willing to do the right thing either. In the end, we all agreed to let it go. No cops, no report, no one telling anyone what happened. It felt wrong, so wrong, but somehow we all just stood there and let it happen. I still wonder whether I made the right decision. It wasn't like there was any going back after that. In hindsight, I know we should have called, but in the moment, it felt like a mistake I couldn't undo. We could have been safe, we could have stopped whatever was out there before it got worse. But we didn't, and I don't know what was worse, the fear of what had happened, or the fear of what we had chosen to ignore. I think about it often. The silence that followed Kyle's words, the weight of that choice we made, hangs over me. The next week, everything was supposed to go back to normal, right? Well, as normal as it could be after something like that. Kyle tried to brush it off, like nothing had happened. He joked about going back to the woods to get the Easter eggs, like it was just another game, just another stupid tradition. He even laughed as he said it, but there was no real joy in his voice. Maybe he was trying to convince himself that things were fine. Maybe he thought if he laughed about it enough, he could bury whatever happened that night. But I couldn't laugh. It wasn't funny. How could it be? I hadn't felt safe since that night. Since that man, those people were still out there. I kept picturing the way that guy's eyes looked, wild and vacant, like he wasn't even human. I still couldn't shake the feeling that they were still watching, waiting. The woods weren't the same place anymore. What had once been our playground, our place of adventure, was now a place of fear, something dark and unpredictable. I couldn't even walk past them without thinking about what happened. I haven't been back to Kyle's place since. I don't think I ever will. It's not just the woods though. It's everything. It's that feeling that nothing is ever truly safe, no matter how well you think you know a place. That sense of being watched, of someone lurking in the background, still haunts me. And it's worse around Easter, that time of year when the game was supposed to be fun, something to laugh about. Now it feels like a trap. The past always creeps back, especially around Easter. It's like the ghosts of that night never left, always hovering just beyond the trees, just outside my vision. And I can't get the image of that flash of light out of my head. It wasn't a camera flash. It wasn't someone just taking a picture. It was something else. Something that made me feel exposed, like I had been caught in a moment I wasn't supposed to be in. Honestly, I don't think I'll ever get rid of that feeling. That flash of light still lingers, haunting me in the quietest moments, reminding me of what happened. I don't know if I'll ever truly escape it. I must have been 6 or 7, one of those ages where everything feels bigger than it probably is. I remember Easter being this massive event, not just in the way kids get excited for candy or egg hunts, but something heavier, like the whole world was supposed to stop for it. Looking back, I think it had more to do with how intense my family was about religion. Church wasn't just a thing we did, it was the thing. Sundays were already sacred. But Easter, that felt like the Super Bowl of church. That year we went to Holy Cross Chapel. It wasn't our usual place, but I guess they wanted something grander for the holiday. The church sat on this hill, with a sharp stone face and this weirdly long staircase leading to the front doors. I remember holding the railing too tightly and trying not to trip on my dress shoes. The bells were ringing when we got there. Loud, way too loud. I still tense up when I hear church bells now. Inside, everything looked perfect, almost too perfect. The kind of place that makes you feel like you're supposed to whisper even when you're just breathing. The altar was covered in flowers. Sunlight poured through the stained glass like it had been timed, and the choir sang so perfectly it didn't even sound real. But none of that stuck with me the way the basement did. That's where they held CCD after Mass. The classrooms, the decorations. It felt like someone had gone overboard in the best way. Paper streamers, glittery lambs taped to the walls, those hand-drawn pictures of Jesus with kids. It was loud and messy and alive. Honestly, it felt more like Easter down there than it ever did upstairs. It's strange. The stuff your brain decides to hold on to. At the time, it didn't feel like anything. Just one of those passing little observations that floats through a kid's head, but it got stuck there, and it never really left. There was this boy, Jamie, I think that was his name, one of the younger kids. He didn't show up to his CCD class that Easter Sunday. Nobody seemed alarmed, not really. It wasn't like there was an announcement or anything. I only noticed because his coat was still hanging on the rack next to mine, the sleeves kind of twisted up like someone had rushed to hang it. His name was written inside in black marker, Jamie, clear as day, and his art folder was still lying open on the little table they used for coloring. It looked like someone had just stepped away from it, like he was coming right back. I think one of the teachers casually asked if anyone had seen him, but it didn't feel like concern, more like habit. Someone else mumbled that maybe he'd gotten sick or had to leave early. Adults are good at sounding calm when they want to, almost too good. The kind of calm that doesn't match the situation. But I noticed other things, small things. His juice cup was still sealed, the foil top untouched, and there was a pile of crayons still sitting neatly where he'd left them the week before, like no one had moved them since, like they were waiting for him. It should have felt normal, but it didn't. It was the kind of detail that only started to feel wrong after everything else happened, after I had something to compare it to. I don't usually ask to leave in the middle of class. Even as a kid, I was the type who'd wait it out, just sit and squirm and count the minutes until I could go. But that Easter, the service had run longer than usual, and I just couldn't hold it anymore. So I raised my hand kind of sheepishly, and the teacher just nodded me out without much fuss. No one really paid attention. The second I stepped into the hallway, something felt off. I don't even know how to describe it properly. It was quiet, but not the normal kind of quiet. Not peaceful. It was like the sound had been sucked out, like even the air didn't want to make noise anymore. My footsteps felt too loud. I kept expecting to hear something, teachers talking, chairs scraping, some other kid laughing, but there was nothing. Just this weird hum from the lights overhead. I passed the other classrooms slowly, like I was trying not to disturb anything. There were decorations everywhere. Pastel streamers, drawings of bunnies in the empty tomb, stick figure kids with halos crowding around Jesus. But none of it made me feel safer. If anything, it made things worse, like it was trying too hard to feel happy. And I knew there were people down there somewhere. Other kids, teachers. The place wasn't empty, but for some reason, walking that hallway felt like I'd stepped out of the world for a second. Like I'd wandered into a space where I wasn't supposed to be alone, and yet I was. Every step I took toward the end of that hallway felt heavier, like I was walking deeper into something that didn't want to be seen. The bathroom looked exactly the same as it always had. Same dull tile that never quite looked clean, same pale lighting that buzzed a little too loud, same chipped paint around the mirror and faucets. But even as a little kid, I could feel it. Something wasn't right. I don't mean anything dramatic, just that weird gut feeling like I'd walked in somewhere I wasn't supposed to be, like I'd interrupted something, even though it was empty. I went to the second stall without thinking. I always used that one. I had this idea that the ones closest to the door were unlucky, like they were too exposed. The second one felt like a middle ground, just enough space from everything. I locked the door behind me and sat there, just trying to be quick about it, not thinking too hard. But then I heard it. It was soft at first, quiet enough that I thought I might have imagined it, but it came again. A slow, dragging noise like something solid being scraped gently against metal. It didn't make sense. It wasn't the sound of someone shifting in place or unlocking a door. It was too steady, too deliberate, like someone didn't want to be heard, but also didn't care enough to stop entirely. It was coming from the next stall over. I froze. My whole body just went stiff. Like if I didn't move, I'd somehow become invisible. I remember staring at the little gap under the divider, just waiting to see a pair of shoes or something. But I didn't see anything. That almost made it worse. Like whoever, or whatever, was in there knew how to stay just out of sight. I finished up like normal, flushed, unlocked the stall and stepped out to wash my hands. Nothing felt off for those first couple of seconds. I still remember the sound of the water rushing from the faucet, and the way the soap dispenser made that hollow squeak when I pressed it. I was alone. At least I thought I was. But when I looked up into the mirror, that's when I saw him. He was just standing there, right outside the stall I'd been in, not moving. Just there, dressed head to toe in this dingy old Easter bunny costume. The fur looked gray in patches, like it had been dragged through dirt and never washed. The ears sagged forward like they were tired. One of the plastic eyes looked crooked, barely attached to the head. It didn't even sit right. Like the whole thing was a size too big or too small, I couldn't tell. And the strange part, maybe the scariest part in hindsight, was that I wasn't scared. Not at first. My brain didn't sound any alarms. It just tried to make sense of what it was seeing. I think I assumed he was a volunteer, maybe part of a surprise Easter thing for the kids. Maybe they hadn't told the teachers. It wouldn't have been the weirdest thing, but he didn't say anything. He didn't move. He just stood there, head tilted slightly, staring, or at least I think he was staring. There was no way to know through the mask. Then he raised one arm and pointed, slowly toward the back exit. There was nothing rushed or urgent about it. It was almost lazy, and for some reason, I followed. I don't even remember pushing the door open. I just remember how easily it gave way, like it had never been locked at all. Which made no sense. Those doors were always supposed to be locked from the inside. The kind of rule teachers never stopped repeating. But this one opened like it had been waiting. He was ahead of me now, still in that limp, sagging bunny suit, walking with that same weird, steady rhythm, not saying anything, not turning back to see if I was following, just moving forward. Like this was the only direction that existed. I didn't question it. Not then. I think my brain had gone soft from the quiet. We were almost to the edge of the parking lot before I noticed the van. It wasn't parked like the other cars. It was half tucked along the tree line, where the gravel thinned out, old-looking, kind of off-white, like it used to be painted but got tired halfway through. And that's when the second one stepped out from behind it. Same exact costume, same off-color fur, same crooked ears, same stiff legs and dirty plastic eyes staring too long. It didn't feel like I was looking at two people dressed for a church event. It felt like I was watching something repeat itself, a glitch or something. But worse, my legs just froze, not gradually, it was instant. Like everything in me shut down at once. And maybe that's when my brain caught up, because all I could think was, this isn't a game, this isn't a surprise, this isn't Easter. There were no parents, no music, no candy baskets, just two bunnies standing there like they were waiting for me to choose. I don't think I've ever heard someone scream like that before. It wasn't loud in the usual way, not the kind of scream you'd hear in a movie. It was sharp, like it cut through everything. Even the air. Miss Delaney. She must have been rounding the side of the building, probably out for a smoke or chasing down one of the other kids. I don't think she even registered what she was looking at. Not fully. But that sound she made, that hit me harder than anything else. I can still hear it, honestly. The bunny, the one I'd been following, he let go of my hand the second she screamed. It was fast, too fast. Like he wasn't sure if someone had seen him or just didn't expect anyone to show up. I didn't feel him let go so much as I felt the air come back. My hand had been numb, cold, like holding on to something empty. I ran without a plan, just toward her, toward the sound. My legs didn't ask permission. I barely remember moving at all. I turned once when I was standing with her, just in time to see the van pulling away. It didn't rush. It wasn't speeding. But it was leaving like it had done this before, and in the back window, I swear on everything, there was someone, small, pressed against the glass like they were trying to become part of it. I told them everything. My parents, the teachers, the police. I didn't hold anything back. I even told them about Jamie, his coat, his juice cup, his crayons still out like he'd just stepped away. They told me no kids were missing. No van had been seen. No bunny costumes were part of any church activity. But Jamie never came back to CCD. His coat never showed up again, and nobody asked me about it twice. Every Easter, like clockwork, My entire extended family makes the same exact pilgrimage out to my Uncle Rick's place. This massive, creaky old house planted dead in the middle of nowhere, rural West Virginia. I swear, it's so deep in the sticks you lose cell signal before you even hit his driveway. It's one of those family traditions that just refuses to die, no matter how many of us secretly dread it. My parents treat it like some sacred ritual. It doesn't matter what's going on. Rain, snow, apocalypse, we pack up and go. And since I'm an only child, that means I'm stuck in the back seat of a too-warm car for hours, listening to their old playlists and pretending I don't have motion sickness. I've been doing this trip since I was a kid, and I still haven't figured out how to fake a decent excuse to get out of it. It's not like I hate my family or anything. I just don't really fit in. They're all into hunting, fishing, lawn tractors, and DIY septic tank repairs. I live in a one-bedroom apartment, order takeout 6 nights a week, and think mosquitoes are reason enough to burn the outdoors down. The only person who gets me at least a little is my cousin Mason. He's a couple years older, but we've always kind of gravitated toward each other. He doesn't talk too much, doesn't pressure me into fake bonding moments, and somehow manages to make the whole Backwoods Easter thing slightly tolerable. This year felt like every other. Same long drive, same dreading look exchanged with Mason when we pulled up, same feeling of being stuck in a tradition I never signed up for. And I had no idea how different this one was going to be. Most of Saturday was just me and Mason doing our usual thing, avoiding the noise. The house was packed like it always is during these get-togethers. A dozen different conversations happening at once. People I barely know asking questions I don't want to answer. I stuck close to the basement. Cooler down there. Quieter. There's an old pool table with crooked legs, and neither of us are any good, but it beats pretending to care about Cousin Kelsey's latest home birth story, or whatever new hunting gear Uncle Barry just bought. At some point, Mason started talking about the woods out back. Said they stretch for miles. Not just a patch of trees, but a whole network of trails and old-growth forest that nobody really takes the time to explore. He went on about how peaceful it was, how it always felt like stepping into another world. I could tell he meant it, like he wasn't just trying to fill the silence. He really loved it out there. I mostly just nodded. I'm not exactly what you'd call outdoorsy. I think the last time I voluntarily walked through a forest was on a middle school field trip, and I'm still not over the tick bites. But boredom does weird things. After a few hours of doing nothing, the idea of walking around in the cold, muddy woods somehow didn't seem worse than staying inside and making small talk with relatives who treat me like a curiosity. He said he had a path in mind, nothing extreme, no cliffs or swamps, just a loop through the trees. It sounded harmless enough, and honestly, when we stepped outside and headed toward the tree line, I didn't even hesitate. I probably should have. We'd been out there for a while, not too deep, not totally off the grid, but far enough that the house was out of sight, and I was definitely starting to wonder how the hell we'd find our way back if Mason suddenly forgot his familiar route. I didn't say anything though, didn't want to sound like the nervous city cousin. Mason seemed relaxed, cutting through the brush like he'd done this 1,000 times. And maybe he had. The path wasn't really a path, more like a suggestion of one, just worn enough to follow if you were paying attention. I tried to act like it didn't freak me out how quiet everything was. No birds, no breeze, no nothing. And then that sound started. It was sudden, this deep, dull thunk. Not once, it came in rhythm. Thunk, pause, thunk. Almost mechanical, but not quite. It sounded handmade, heavy, like someone driving a mallet into wood over and over. Not frantic, not careless, deliberate. It wasn't close, but it wasn't far enough to ignore either. We both froze at the same time. I remember that clearly, just stood there listening. I didn't want to speak, like saying anything out loud would make it more real. Mason didn't say much either, just sort of squinted into the trees like he was trying to rationalize it. But I could tell by the way he shifted his weight. He was uneasy too. We should have turned around. We really should have. But instead we kept walking, slow and quiet, like idiots in a movie who ignore the obvious warning signs. I told myself it was just curiosity, or maybe I just didn't want to be the one to flinch first. We'd been walking long enough that I stopped trying to guess how far we'd gone. The woods started to feel tighter, like the trees were closing in a bit, even though I don't think they actually were. Mason was still in front, keeping a steady pace, and I was doing my best to not overthink how quiet it had gotten again. Then we hit this little clearing. Not big, not dramatic. Just a patch where the trees thinned out a bit, and that's when I saw them. 3 crosses. Wooden, but upside down. Each one nailed high up on separate tree trunks, at least 15 feet off the ground. I remember just stopping and staring, trying to figure out how they'd even gotten up there. There weren't markings around, no ladder, no ropes, nothing. They looked weathered but solid, like they'd been there a while but not long enough to rot, and I don't know how I didn't notice him right away. Off to the side, maybe 20 feet back, there was a man, just standing there. Not hiding, not moving, just there, wearing flannel, thick beard, looked like the kind of guy you'd expect to see splitting logs in a hardware store commercial. But something about the way he stood, the way he looked, it was wrong. Not aggressive, not friendly, just unreadable, like he was waiting for something, or someone. I didn't breathe for a second. Mason didn't either. I think we both just felt it, that feeling you get in your stomach when something isn't just weird, it's off, like you're somewhere you're absolutely not supposed to be. We didn't talk, we didn't run. Mason just turned and walked. I followed, and that walk back felt about 10 times longer than it should have. We weren't running, but it felt like we should have been. That kind of fast walk you do when you don't want to look scared, but every nerve in your body is telling you to move. Mason was a few steps ahead, not saying anything, and I was too busy replaying what we'd seen to fill the silence. Then I saw it. This small black box strapped to a tree trunk, maybe shoulder height. A trail cam, one of those motion-activated ones hunters use to monitor deer. Its little red light blinked twice as we passed, like it was taking a shot right then and there. I stopped for half a second. I don't know why it bothered me so much at first. It's not like trail cams are that weird to see out in the woods, but this one, it was pointed straight down the path we'd just come from, right toward that clearing. It hadn't been there on the way in, or maybe it had, and I'd just missed it, but I don't think so. I'm pretty good at noticing little stuff like that. And even if I had missed it, the idea of a camera pointed that precisely, it felt intentional. Like someone wanted to see who got close to those crosses. Like someone was monitoring that exact route. And that was when things shifted for me. Up until that point, it still felt like maybe we'd stumbled into someone's weird backyard setup. Like, yeah, creepy, but maybe just random. After seeing that camera? No, this wasn't random. Someone was keeping watch. Someone was waiting. And the worst part, I had no clue if they'd already seen us before we even saw them. Sleep wasn't really an option that night. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw those crosses again, or the guy just standing there, or that blinking red light. My brain wouldn't shut up, just kept cycling through what-if scenarios like some messed-up slideshow. Eventually, I gave up. It was barely 5 in the morning, still pitch black outside, but I figured I'd go sit in the study on the 3rd floor for a bit. Uncle Rick's got this big old chair up there, and the window looks straight out over the backyard and into the tree line. It's peaceful usually, a good spot to zone out. At first I didn't see anything, just dark trees, the outline of the shed, that heavy early morning fog creeping across the grass. But then something flickered, faint, orange, almost like the flame of a candle. Then another, then a third. I squinted, thinking maybe I was imagining it, but I wasn't. There were 3 of them, small torch-like lights, barely visible, held by 3 people standing just beyond the edge of the woods, not moving, not wandering, just there. I went out onto the back deck. Not smart, I know, but it felt like something I had to see with my own eyes, and when I did, it hit me like a punch to the chest. They weren't just facing the house, they were facing me, directly, like they knew I'd be watching. I don't remember the exact moment I turned and ran, just that my whole body went cold, and I was suddenly back inside, waking up Uncle Rick like a maniac. I couldn't even string together a full sentence. By the time he got outside with his rifle, the woods were quiet again, just trees, but I know what I saw. Uncle Rick fired off a couple warning shots without even thinking, just straight into the air, loud and sharp. It was enough to jolt the whole house awake. Lights flicked on, people came stumbling out of rooms. Kids started crying. No one knew what was going on at first, and I couldn't explain it fast enough, not in a way that made sense. The adults all tried to calm things down. Probably just locals messing around. Nothing to worry about, but I saw their faces. No one believed what they were saying. The fear was there, just under the surface, especially once they saw that I wasn't joking. I don't remember much of what was said after, just a lot of whispered conversations and sideways looks, and then, for whatever reason, the day just kept going. People still tried to make Easter happen. Eggs were hidden. Someone brought out a ham. It was almost like everyone silently agreed to pretend the morning never happened, but no one was really in it. The energy was off. People kept drifting to the windows, watching the woods like they expected something to step out of them. We left that afternoon. I didn't say goodbye to half the people. I just wanted to be back in my apartment with locks I trusted and streetlights outside. That ride home felt longer than the one there. Uncle Rick's never brought it up again. Not once, and I haven't asked. But it eats at me sometimes, especially late at night. The way those figures just stood there, not moving, not making a sound, like they were waiting for something, or someone. I don't know what they wanted. I still don't. And maybe that's the part that messes with me the most.